Good morning. Welcome to EXSIN Live. And today is exciting. Phil is he's been had a busy week. He had his sleep study last night. So he's angry bear today because he didn't sleep. Apparently a sleep study, you don't sleep. I did not know this, but I've learned a lot today.
Getting old, for the week.
It is not. It is not. And then he's enjoyed the doctor so much, he's going to try the dentist this afternoon, right?
It's been a great 10 days. I got stuff falling apart left and right.
Hey, just tweaking it. It's like an old car. You got to replace some parts every now and then.
I'm getting an engine. I'm getting an engine. I'm beyond the tune-up. I'm getting a rebuild. I need a little body work too. I
want to welcome everybody to the new studio. What we're doing here, kind of make it more informal, more fun. Some of you that are our age will remember this scene. We've changed it to fit EXSIN Live. Hopefully we haven't violated any rules. If we have, we apologize.
I'm sure we have.
We'll get a letter from somebody.
We'll cease and desist any day now.
Can't wait. It's going to be so exciting. Yeah. So we're just trying to bring some fun back to the world and help businesses. Today, we're going to kind of piggyback on some other coaches out there and some things they've done. We're going to talk about the 6 parts of leadership. Of building a business, not leadership, building a business. And then we're going to take the next 5 weeks and talk through each one of those. So the 6 are, so I give you what they are: leadership, marketing, sales, product creation, overhead, and cash flow. And if you own a business and any of this surprises you right now, pay attention because we're going to help you. And today, our first lesson, today's discussion is going to be solely focused on leadership because if you want to be a badass leader, you got to understand how to do it, right?
Yeah, I've got many little sayings. Dave rolls his eyes at most of them, and rightfully so. But I always say everybody wants to be a badass till it's time to do badass stuff,
That's
and then people run from it. And I don't mean that literally in a physical sense all the time. I mean that in being able to make decisions, hard decisions, in a timely manner, do it at the right way, doing things that take courage. Sometimes one of the number one things being a great leader is you gotta analyze, you gotta think things through in a quick manner, in a thoughtful but a quick manner, and then you got to be willing to pull the trigger regardless of what it might mean to you personally. You've got to do the right thing, and that's hard. That's very, very hard to do. In today's culture, we see it all the time. I think where sometimes folks are not quite as free to speak what they really feel because they're concerned of ramifications. And I'm not talking about people that are saying obvious things that we all would agree are inappropriate. I'm talking about having a strong opinion that maybe doesn't fit the narrative of the masses. Just because more people think something that doesn't make it right.
No, absolutely not.
And so, and that's where I think thoughtfulness and courage and being a strong leader really shows.
So Jennifer's speaking some truths right now. No problem speaking her mind. She's doing great.
That's our girl.
One of the biggest things, and we're going to talk a lot about this today, but one of the biggest things about being a leader is being respectful.
Yeah.
And I mean this in every way, shape, and form. It seems like every couple of weeks we're hearing about some incident with somebody in an organization being disrespectful to somebody and making that person feel uncomfortable. Now, there's 2 kinds of uncomfortable. I can make you feel uncomfortable because you're not doing your job and I'm pushing you to get better, or I can make you uncomfortable by being inappropriate. I am talking about making people be uncomfortable by being inappropriate. There's no place in today's world for that. So if you think that that's okay, if you think intimidation and fear is okay, a way to lead, you need to rethink your thought process. Now, pushing people to get better, absolutely. So let's start with this. The way you start building a team first, as a leader, you got to fix yourself, right? You've got to look in the mirror and go, what are my weaknesses? What are my strengths? And how do I put people around me that overcome my weaknesses? We talk about this all the time and we'll never stop because until you do that, you can't lead anybody.
Well, that's the first thing, and that's the most important thing.
Yep.
I mean, bottom line is that I have many weaknesses. People that know me personally are brutally aware of that, right? We all do.
Yeah.
I think what makes a good leader is, are you self-aware enough to acknowledge those weaknesses and do what Dave just said? Surround yourself with people that have those skills and abilities that you don't necessarily have, or that maybe aren't your strongest skill set. But however you want to frame it, if you're not good at public speaking, then please do not try to be a public speaker. If you're not good,
why?
I don't know. If you're not good at doing of giving constructive criticisms and constructive having constructive conversations with employees or with vendors or with whoever it may be, then please don't do that. And we've all been put in situations where we felt like we had to take on some things that maybe weren't our biggest strong suit. And I know for me personally, every time I've done that, it's ended in complete and utter failure and disaster. And so you got to be self-aware. You've got to understand who you are and what you're good at and what you're not as good at. And then you got to have the courage to acknowledge that to other people. And that's where a lot of people shut down.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that just try to they just convince themselves. They read a book in 1983 that said, this is how you do things. And they've just convinced themselves that I'm just going to keep doing the same bad behavior over and over and over, and it's eventually going to change. And I'm just here to tell you, it doesn't change. It does not change. Unless you fundamentally change your spots, unless you fundamentally go develop those skills and you evolve and you become better in those areas, it's not going to change just because you keep trying it. You got to take real action to change it.
So, Phil, that was a great lead-in.
Oh, good.
That was an amazing lead into the kind of the overview we're going to talk about leadership that I want you to write down. If you want to be a great leader, first, write down your weaknesses and strengths. Write them down on a piece of paper and have them there so you know what they are and develop your plan, how you're going to fix them. Yeah. The next thing is you need to develop a battle plan for you and your organization. Because we find time and time again in organizations, they have no battle plan. They have no way to develop their younger leaders. They have no way to develop their tactics to get them to where they want to be. They have no focus of what the end goal is, right? And I'm going to use this because it's probably the best one ever. In World War II, the country's goal was to win the war. To win the war, we sent soldiers overseas to fight the war, and they did not come home until they won the war. Every war since then, we have not followed that. The goal has not been to win the war. They have said, yeah, we kind of want to win Vietnam. We sent guys over there. If you survive a year, you get to come home. Afghanistan, if you survive 6 months, a year, you get to come home. The war has never ended in Afghanistan. We just left Vietnam because it got so unpopular. In your company, if you're not setting a goal to help your team achieve their outcomes, you will end up in a quagmire, total mess, because your team is not focused on reaching the goal. And we're seeing that now with how long we've been in Afghanistan? 20 years? 21 years?
20 years.
So as a business owner, I want you to take that and put it in your head. My goals need to motivate my people to reach the goal. If your goal is to win the war, don't tell people they can come home in a year.
Well, and I think, too, to be really clear about this, and I'm going to use Vietnam because Dave and I both have a lot of friends that early in our career were Vietnam veterans, and we love them and we respect them, and they're great soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen. And we're not talking about, to compare it in business. You have the greatest employees. I firmly believe we have the greatest military in the world.
We do.
And we always have.
Yep.
Right. And I believe that in Vietnam, we took these great employees and we put them in an impossible situation, and we didn't support them. Nope. We didn't do the things necessary to make sure they got the W. And so it created this vacuum, right? And I think the same thing happens in business. You can have the greatest hires. I mean, think about this. It's very difficult to have great hires. If you do a good job, you get great people hired, and you train them and you invest in them and you put them out there, then you don't support them. Why have you done all those things? I mean, you got to support your people. And a big part about being a great leader is understanding what that really looks like. And then once you understand it, you got to execute on it. You can't just say, yeah, I get it, and then not do anything about it. Darren had a great comment up here. He said, great leaders ask questions, but they need to be ready for the answer you may not want. Being a great leader means that you got to check your ego at the door and sometimes hear things that you don't want to hear because it's hard. I mean, the first time people told me that I could be a little abrupt, I was shocked.
I'm shocked.
Not really. I really wasn't shocked, but that's something I continue to work on. I don't know if abrupt's the right word, but I know I'm very direct, and I know because I'm loud and don't have any hair and I'm an old fat guy. I guess some people take that directness as something that I don't intend it to be. It doesn't matter what I intend; it matters what's received. And so I've got to continually work on that and continue to get better at that. We use the saying all the time. You've heard us say it. You got to be willing to strip down naked in front of the world if you're going to get better. We don't mean literally. Okay. Nobody wants to see that, Dave.
No,
we don't want to be literally.
No,
we don't want to be. We don't be that literally. But you emotionally, professionally, you've got to be willing to strip down and say, hey, listen, this is who I am. How do I get better? And I think what hurts most leaders is they're not willing to do that.
That's a fact. That's a great explanation of what I was talking about with goals and getting your team.
Yeah.
And to piggyback on what he said there first before I go on to the next point is this. If you need your team to work overtime, then you got to pay them to work overtime. If you need your team to go do something, you need to give them the tools to get there. That goes into the bed, beans, and bullets that we're used to, right? If you don't take care of that core stuff in your battle plan and then be willing to adjust based on the situation for your company, then you do it. And yes, I know money is tight. Yes, I know you're in it to make money, but you've got to balance that with taking care of the team and doing what it takes to get there. And sometimes you have to make hard decisions. We're not going to argue with you on that. That's a fact.
Yeah,
a fact of business, especially in the most recent challenge with our economy.
Well, and I would say this too: if you're going to ask your people to work overtime, using that example, then you need to be willing to work overtime side by side with them. I mean, too many times leaders bark orders and they say, "You do this, you do this, you do this," and then they hop in their car and go home at 2 p.m. and go play golf. So I'm just telling you, you want to lose an organization culturally, do things like that.
Yeah, Darren just posted, and it's great. Don't demand what you're not willing to do yourself.
Fact.
We know a lot of business owners that are both ways, and one that I respect with my whole heart. I was in his office one day. He's a multi-million-dollar business owner, and he's picking up the trash around his organization, and that is exactly what we're talking about. Is, are you willing to sweep the floor? Are you willing to take the shovel and dig the hole? Are you willing to wash the windows if it needs to be done? Whatever the team needs you to do, you do. And I think we lose sight of that. We believe that we're bigger than we are. And at the end of the day, we're all going to end up in the same place.
There was a guy, I had this conversation this morning with a buddy of mine I grew up with. We were talking about this gentleman that in his line of work, sometimes things would come up and he would need a contractor, somebody that was a vendor for his company, maybe to go out on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock because an emergency occurred. And one of the cool things about this gentleman is when he'd make that call and the person would say, yeah, I'll head that way. And he goes, great, I'll meet you there. And because he would never ask somebody to go out on a Sunday morning, be away from his family, many times miss church, something that's for many people is a very important function within their family unit. And then he would not ask them to go do it and not be there with them. He wouldn't do the work because he didn't know how, but he was there with them, offering support, offering help to do whatever he could. But most importantly, he was there with them. And that's a big deal. I mean, this is a guy that I haven't seen in close to 40 years, 35 years. And I still think of that. I mean, that's the kind of impact it has on people. So little things add up to big things. Big things usually aren't that big if the little things aren't taken care of. I mean, you've got to do the little things to get the big results in business.
So we built our battle plan. We now developed the strategy to get the beds, beans, and bullets to the team so they can go do their job. The next thing you have to do is determine your training path and tactics required to reach your goal. I don't know how many businesses we work with. Then you went to the word trainer. No, I don't need training.
No, we're good.
I'm going to tell you. That's about as smart as taking your.
Be careful. Be careful.
You have kids that play sports.
Oh,
Some
man.
of you, right?
Here we go.
Would you just grab a bunch of kids and throw them on the field with no guidance and direction? Say, hey, have fun. It's all good. I haven't met that parent yet.
Not one that's
As a
being
matter of
honest.
fact, I've met a lot of parents that sit behind their kids on the sidelines and coach them.
I call them the rail hangers. They'll hang over the rail. They'll hang over the rail.
Right? So as a leader, you have to think about the stuff you're doing for your kids, you need to do for your team.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to go coach your son's hockey team and you're going to make them shoot 60 shots at goal, then you need to show your team how to do things and practice their skills 60 times. It's not any different, but as we get into adults, like, oh, well, they know how to do that. No, they don't. And they certainly don't know how to do it to the standard you expect as a business owner because you're passionately engaged and involved in your business, and they're not yet.
Yeah.
A new employee is not where you are with your business. They're just there to work, and hopefully they're excited about it.
Nor should you expect them to be.
Absolutely.
Think about how unrealistic that is. 2 weeks earlier, they were working somewhere else. They had a different mission. They had a different culture. Everything was different. Now we expect them day one to have the same passion and desire with no training, no development, no help launching them in their career. We're just going to say, this is where you'll sit. Good luck. If you have any questions, talk to Jim or talk to Sue or talk to whoever.
Yep.
You know, that it doesn't work. And you know, we're talking about businesses. We're talking about people's livelihoods. And I'm not just talking about the business owner. You know, the biggest responsibility business owners have, and we talk to tons of them, is they all go to bed worried about the families of their employees and how are they going to do the right thing to make good decisions to ensure that they have great jobs so that those workers can have a great life. That is, and I know that's not popular in some circles. People want to bang on the business owner out there and act like they're this cold-hearted person that doesn't care about anything but profit. I don't live in a rose-colored world. I realize there are people like that out there. Those aren't the people we're talking about. You know, and the vast majority of people aren't like that. They care about their employees. They care about their employees' families. They want to create good opportunity. So what we're talking about isn't done because they don't care. It's done out of, to be quite frank, ignorance and many times just trying to be cheap. You know, they don't put a priority on training and development, or they don't put a priority on when there becomes an obvious problem with the direction you're heading. You know, we've said this many times. You can have the greatest plan in the world. You can execute on that plan. But when you get into it, if you realize you were wrong, please don't keep doing what you were wrong about. It's time to adjust. It's time to turn the ship on a dime. Have you ever seen a battle? Have you ever seen an aircraft carrier or battleship try to turn on a dime? They don't turn on a dime. It
might get sporty if you do.
Yeah, they don't turn on a dime. So the reality is when you notice it, you got to start the process of turning. And it doesn't happen overnight, but you got to start taking the steps to change your direction, or you're going to continue to go down a road of not being successful. And why are you doing that? I mean, one of my favorite lines is, Dave's heard me say this, I got a nonprofit, this ain't it, right? Yep. I mean, you know, you're in business to create jobs. You're in business, hopefully, to contribute to the American economy or the world economy, depending on your business. You're in business for you to provide a great life for your family and for yourself. You know, you get that as the owner by taking great care of your employees, making sure they have a great culture to work in, that they understand their battle rhythm, that they understand the mission of the company, that they understand all these things, and they're equipped to go do their job. You don't do it by pounding your desk and screaming. It doesn't work. I mean, you might get an immediate, you might walk out of that room when you do that thinking, oh man, that was a great, they heard me. Well, yeah, now they're all in the lunchroom 2 hours later talking about how big of a jerk you are and how you don't appreciate what they do every day. You know, you got to be smarter than that, and you got to be more strategic in that when you're taking action as a leader.
I want you to think about your people like this. And it's kind of a silly analogy, but it's something I made a mistake on my entire life, and it's something really simple. You ever plant grass seed? You go out and spend a couple $100s on grass seed for your yard, right? But something happens, you get busy, you don't give it the attention, you aren't watering it every day like you should, right? You aren't giving it the environment to grow. You aren't providing it the things it needs to excel, and it stagnates and it dies. I don't know how many yards I've killed over life. I've gotten better at it because I'm learning, right? Because I know I'm not good at grass, so I'm working on it every day. And your employees are the same way. If you bring you spend a bunch of money on this new employee, the highest quality employee you can get. I mean, they are the best. And you spend this money to bring them in, and then you stop nurturing them. You stop giving them the water and food they need to grow in their job. What do you expect to happen? Good luck? Survival of the fittest? I mean, are we the Hunger Games now? That's not realistic. And so I want to encourage you as a leader, build your battle plan, bed beans and bullets, give your people the stuff they need, and then nurture your team and give them the opportunity and the ability to grow into the type of person you want working for your organization.
Well, we see this a lot in all facets of an organization, but I think the area where it's the most obvious is in the sales teams usually, because usually most organizations measure their sales teams and, what are they doing? What's their activity like? What are their sales results? They got quotas, got all this stuff. So usually the sales team's measured more literally than any other department, usually. That's a broad brush statement, but in most organizations. But when we talk to people, say, well, what have you done to train them? What tools have you given them to be successful? What are you doing? What are you doing for corrective action? If something's not working, are you sitting down regularly having a conversation with them to find out why this isn't working? And usually you get this blind 1,000-yard stare back at you going, well, I mean, and you hear things like, well, it's a numbers game. We're just not calling enough people. Not true. It's not true.
Nope.
Okay. Or, well, I mean, it's not that hard. When I used to sell, I used to be the whole sales operation for this company, by God. And I did this and I did that. Great. Ted Williams, one of the greatest baseball players in the history of the game, one of the greatest hitters ever to live of a baseball, was a terrible manager when he became a manager because he couldn't understand why everybody couldn't hit the ball at least 300. If you had a below 300 average, he thought you were terrible. Why is that? Because his own skill set, he was naturally gifted in that area, and he could go out and hit 350, 360, 370, 400. I mean, he was more naturally talented. I will take sales members all day long that are thoughtful, that work hard, that are executing a plan with the right tools, that have less talent than a person that just goes out there and says, I'm really talented, so I'll just go out and call on a lot of people. I'll take this side all day long. And guess what? I'll win. The talented folks, if you can get a talented folk, a good example of that is, I'll give you some in business and maybe a couple in sports. Elon Musk, very talented, genius, workaholic. He sleeps inside. When he's building a new factory, he sleeps in the factory while it's being built. I was listening to a TED Talk with Elon Musk. Now, he's a different cat. Don't get me wrong.
He's highly motivated to succeed.
He's highly motivated to succeed. He's willing to do things that literally, a tenth of 1% of the world's willing to do that are in his position. Not just in the whole world, but people that are leaders of companies. He's that much of a unicorn, right? But that's why he's so ultra successful. Tiger Woods, when he was in his prime in golf, none of us ever saw anything like him. Why? Because he was supremely talented, but he was also had this obsessive work ethic. Nobody outworked Tiger Woods. Michael Jordan, nobody outworked Michael Jordan. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, they're great, but they're rare. They're a unicorn. Very few people have that God-given talent and that desire and that work ethic to do whatever it takes to be successful. That's a unicorn.
Well, and the opposite example of that is Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most talented receivers out there.
Still a Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer. Amazing person. Oh my God, if he put the work in, how good could he have been?
He would have been the greatest ever.
They were doing stats of Jerry Rice and him yesterday. Jerry Rice probably wasn't as talented as Randy Moss, but he had 5,000 more yards than him, or 6,000 more yards than him over a career. effort matters. It
Effort
doesn't matter how
matters.
talented you are. It doesn't matter how talented your team is. If you don't spend the time work with them to get better and they don't put the work in themselves, you can't excel. So you have to take the time to nurture your team.
Yep.
You have to take the time to inspire your team to do the extra stuff to get better. So their fundamentals are right that belong in your business.
Last thing I'd say about leadership is listen to your people.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, get an ear out there, walk the floor. If you're a manufacturing plant, get out in the plant floor and listen to them. Ask their opinion, and when they give it to you, take it to heart and apply it where it can be applied. If you're an owner of a medical practice, listen to your medical assistants, listen to your front desk people, listen to your nurses, listen to them, because they're going to bring a perspective that you don't have. And that's so critical. Dave and I were very excited about something that's going to be coming out at the end of this summer, early fall, is we've got a book that's being published. And, you know, we were going through working on that this morning on some things. And Dave and I, through our conversation, kind of realized, hey, we need to take a different approach to this. You know, so we're going to be making our publisher very happy, because we're going to be changing some things. But the reality is that you can't be afraid to hear the answers to questions you ask. As Darren said, you can't be afraid to strip down naked and let people see your flaws. We all have them. Get over yourself. We've all got them. So just get over yourself. Quit acting like you don't.
Stop putting filters on yourself.
Oh my Lord!
Stop filtering yourself. Look, the wrinkles are there. We get it.
Did you see what my daughter, one of my daughter-in-laws did to me?
Yeah,
Took the picture,
the TikTok,
the TikTok, and she's ornery.
Phil does not look good with blonde hair. I gotta say, there were some filters added to Phil.
Well, she took all my bags and my wrinkles, all the 55 years of living off my face. And I was teasing her, and I said, I feel like I need to go have some work done now.
She gave me that blonde hair.
She gave me the blonde hair, which was spectacular. But you know, be who you are with all the scars and the wrinkles and just the reality of living life. Be who you are. People embrace that. People respond to that, and people want to follow that. You know, I mean, if you think you're on an island, you're a fool. Everybody has their own island. Everybody has something that they're struggling with. Most of us, multitude of things that you struggle with on a daily basis, but you just got to keep working on them. You don't have the option to ignore what needs to be improved. That's a fool's approach to life. So make sure that you're really honestly working towards perfection every day. It's an unobtainable goal. But if you set that stretch, the ultimate stretch goal to me is perfection. That's the ultimate stretch goal, because nobody's ever going to get there.
Not a manly,
right?
womanly.
You're never going to get there. But it's going to be the fuel that's going to drive you to keep getting better, to keep improving yourself.
So let's recap what you need to do. Develop your battle plan.
Yep.
Right? Develop your logistics, bed, beans, and bullets for your team. Develop the tactics your team to do. Nurture your team. And finally, the last thing before we close out, you need to be a servant leader.
Yep.
You need to serve your team and your teammates to ensure they have the stuff they need, and you're there as a sounding board for them to grow your company. It sounds really simple, and if you follow a path, it is. I'm not saying there's not challenges, but most businesses they get too busy in the day-to-day tactics to follow the plan, to let their team do their job and go excel.
Yeah.
So with that, this edition of EXSIN Live, we are out of here.